everyone. In just a couple of weeks, there will be a very special election to decide who will fill the vacant Midland City Council at-large seat formerly held by the late City Councilman Dan Corrales. So, special election is taking place on May 4th, and then early voting is going to start on April 22nd through April 26th, then again on April 29th and the 30th. So right now, 5 candidates are running for that position, and today we are joined by one of them. So of course, this is Cheston Blank. You've probably seen him online. Now, he is the youngest of the 5 candidates. You're only 20 years old. So first, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. And it's really interesting because you've been telling people that you saw an opportunity to make a positive change here in Midland. First, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
So my name is Cheston Blank, and I was born in McAllen, Texas, in the Grand Valley area. And my family moved here around 2008 because they found economic opportunities here, especially in the real estate sector. So I've been here ever since, you know. So I've recently been attending college classes, focusing on getting my Associates of Science.
Cool.
At the moment, and as well as working on the campaign.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I want to know what first motivated you to say, hey, I really want to run for this seat.
I wasn't confident there would be a candidate that would speak on the issues that I saw that were very important, especially when you look at, you know, previous, because we had different city council people, and, you know, I just think they don't have the best priorities. So I thought, you know, I can step up and speak on that too, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, something that matters to especially, you know, young people that can't buy homes, people that struggle financially. And, you know, there's ways on the local level those can be improved.
I love that. And so what are some of the key things that you think are big problems? You can name 3 if you want. If you have more, you can name those as well.
They're all interrelated, but the biggest problem is the lack of housing. It is very expensive to live here in Midland, you know, if you're a family or you're just trying to work for yourself, you know. Like, if you want, when I talk to the people at the United Way, if you want to provide your own food, your own housing and shelters, your basic needs, an average Midlander would need to make $18 an hour to reach the bare minimums. So I thought, and the biggest barrier one is housing. Is that we have a shortage of housing, and that's mostly due to the city's local zoning regulations. Things have to be built a certain way with a certain amount of parking, and use is restricted by which area. So like most of Midland is zoned for single-family residential, and there's only very small pockets of denser apartment buildings that people would like to live in, and even then it's expensive because we have regulations such as floor area ratios, minimum parking requirements, setback requirements that like arbitrarily make it more difficult to build on existing land and to make it provide more dwelling places.
That's a really good point. What are some things that you think could be solved to fix why it's so expensive to live here? Because I know you've been very vocal about, hey, we want to make Midland an affordable place to live in. What are some solutions in tackling that?
One is zoning reform. I propose introducing, instead of exclusionary zoning, we have a form-based zoning. So I'm not advocating for like apartment-style apartments next to residential homes, you know.
Right.
But what
No
we
one
can
really
do
likes
is allow more flexibility, right? Instead of regulating the use, we regulate the form around it. You know, we can allow more uses such as corner stores, duplexes, triplexes within residential neighborhoods, without changing too much of the character. You know, introducing some possibility for gentler density. That's one solution, and two. When we get is abolishing minimum parking requirements, because that makes it arbitrarily more expensive to start a business and to build on land, because you have to buy more land than you probably would need. And we have, it's very frustrating when we have a shortage of homes, but we have all these like barren parking lots that could obviously be used to house people.
Right.
So.
Okay, so we talked about housing. What are some other issues that you think you would like to tackle?
Is one of the biggest barriers to upward mobility, across the world, not just Midland, is access to transportation, and that has not been very much of a great focus within the city council. Progress is being made, but it's not as prioritized as it should be. So the bus system here, for example, only runs every hour, and oftentimes they have a really low retention rate with drivers. So sometimes there will be a whole line of the bus that this isn't going that day, and plus a lot of the bus stops don't even have sidewalks or shelters. So not only is it inconvenient and to get there, it's also even impossible if you're if you're disabled, you have a wheelchair,
right?
Or which a lot of riders are. So. For one proposal is to implement the 2020 recommended network. So for the plan, for the bus network. So the Easy Rider did research on the best way, what we can do to make the network better. And so instead of being like a hub and spoke model, because all the buses currently, they go from the suburbs into business centers like downtown and the mall. We operate, it will operate like a grid pattern. You go up and down, left and right, and there will still be like transfer centers, but it would make like introducing new riders to the system like more easier to understand, more convenient, and it will also add a new line. And what's most important is that that plan would have allowed for 30-minute headways. So instead of having loops, it goes up and down, left and right.
Interesting.
So that would be one, and then shelters, of course. And one way is to integrate cycling with the public transit. So adding bike parking to bus stops, or like a bike sharing system. That's one way we can have like multimodal transportation. Because nationally, most trips in America are less than 3 miles, but people still drive their cars. What's very notable in Midland is that the elementary schools, your students you attend which one's closer. They're designed to be in walking distance to students, but you still see these streets clogged with traffic in the morning, even though it's only a mile away from their house.
Right.
So one way is to make it safer, to narrow the streets, comb the streets, make it safer for children to cross on their own, and that would alleviate pressure on parents and grant children more independent mobility.
I think that's a great point to add too, especially with that terrible accident that happened earlier this year. So I'm glad you did bring that up. What do you think separates you from the other candidates, and just what makes you unique exactly?
Well, I understand that I don't have as much experience as the other candidates. So the main way I was going to set myself apart is to focus on specifically my platform. The other folks in the race, like I've been in Midland for this many years, I have this experience. I'm going to set myself apart by advocating specific policy goals that I want to advocate for on the council. That matter to people, and that's what be that's going to be the main focus, is to focus on needed drastic changes that need to happen.
That's wonderful. And so kind of, piggybacking off what you said about your experience, a lot of people are talking about how old you are, which it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have to at least be 18 years old in order to apply for a position like this. What would you say to everyone who says, oh, well, he's a little young, he's still a student? Why do you think, being a young candidate is actually a positive thing?
Well, so it is a lot of responsibility and should be taken seriously, but it's not as intimidating as people may expect. Because I've been learning about how local government functions, going to meetings, understanding the ropes, and it is not it's not too intimidating. It's not like because mainly the people in charge are we're a democracy, so the people are the ones in charge. your main job is to advocate what they want, and most of the the nitty-gritty details are done by the bureaucracies. You appoint people, you work with people already, so you don't have to. It's not as tedious work as people may expect. Anyone can run. It's not hard.
Of course.
You just need to have the skill and courage to put yourself forward.
Yeah, and you've been doing just that. What types of experiences have you had? So I understand you've been involved in the community. Mm-hmm. So talk about that.
So I first started volunteering around high school when I was at early college. Mm-hmm. And so I've been trying to involve, that's been a lot of what I do in my pastimes, just volunteering in the community, and also learning the ropes of how the systems work here. Because it's been also helpful for me sometimes. Now I know where the soup kitchens are, and now I know where to get food, where to get shelter, So that's been a big help. And so last year, I've always been obsessed with politics, So I educated myself. I put a lot of effort into understanding the problems and solutions to them.
So ever since you announced that, hey, I put my name out there, hopefully that this will give me a leg up, what types of things have people been bringing up to you? Maybe some policies that they would like you to kind of address, or any concerns really?
Well, the news cycle kind of died down, so I haven't been getting much responses from people. Mm-hmm. Lots of people don't even know there's an election even coming up. But one thing I might one thing that wants to know is obviously fiscal responsibility. A lot of the things in the news, such as the new hotel we're building, mm-hmm. the new school we're spreading out, we're spending money on a lot of things, and that is something that people, not just me, but all the other candidates, they want to know their positions. So.
That's great. Yeah. And so, okay, you're a student at Midland College, so, taking on this responsibility will definitely be a lot. Mm-hmm. Are you planning, let's say you get elected, how are you going to balance school and everything and trying to address the community's needs?
It's not as hard as you may expect. So I'm only taking one course this semester from 9 to 10. Okay. And I basically have free time after that. And I could, and the teachers the professors are more open to be lenient, maybe more lenient. Yeah. So if I need to go to a council meeting, I'll just warn them in advance. I had to be out this day, and and I'll just work on the assignments at home.
That's the beauty about having really cool teachers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we did have a couple of viewer questions that came in. So one was talking about lawlessness in Midland. Yeah. Where do you stand on law enforcement?
Law enforcement is very important and needs to be put more funding, mm-hmm. right? It's part of the general issue of, again, financial management. We need to put our priorities into the justice system, as well as maybe making the system more efficient. We mm-hmm. have a big problem we don't have enough officers on the job. We don't, and retention as well. A lot of the biggest issues are going to take a lot more to solve, such as mm-hmm. the lack of officers. But I say I support the justice system. I want more funding, just to make it safe enough, and making things having things closer and connected is also helps with law enforcement. You have eyes on the street that can more effectively, call to alert things. Since things are if you keep things from being spread out, the police are allowed to focus on what they already have
right.
in the city.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. I see you do a lot of research when it comes to all of this. Okay, let's talk about roads. So we had a road bond that passed a couple years ago. Where do you stand on roads right now?
We need to have a very overdue conversation about it, because I do believe we need to maintain our existing ones, but even our existing load is extremely expensive. So the department here said that we would need to be spending $37 million a year on maintaining the roads we currently have, and that's like the lower end. Because if you don't maintain them, it's got to be even more expensive later on. Mm-hmm. So one way is to, for one, not make new roads, right? Don't expand out, focus on what we already have and infill development. We should actually start about like shrinking the roads or whatever. There's a lot of roads there is space for, narrowing. We have space for having green space in the middle. Sometimes if you're wide enough to even put more houses there. So like try to focus on not expanding, limiting the burden, and focusing on what we already have.
Okay, great. And so, with you being from the Midland area, you have seen past leaders. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you where you thought, I kind of want to change the way I would lead Midland? And what are some, not necessarily flaws, but maybe some concerns that you've seen in the past that maybe you'd like to tackle?
Well, it's mostly, I've spoken to the people on the council for a while now. A lot of them do agree with me a lot of things. There is progress being made, like I said before, mm-hmm. but it is just not at the pace as it needs to be. It's not as prioritized. So we had plans to make it safer, streets safer, Division 0 plans, to expand the cycling network, to fund the buses. The thing is, all these plans, are years old at this point also. So we had a master plan for cycling back in 2018, 6 years ago. So it is just the pace, and also we need to start. The council doesn't really track the long-term maintenance costs of all this new infrastructure. So we need to, before we expand, before we build new projects, we have to understand how much money is going to cost to maintain over the long term, not just thinking about short-term endeavors and developments. So that is one big issue. We need to just focus more on infrastructure.
Okay.
Because that's what we desperately need more than anything else.
Great. And I have to ask you, being here in Midland for a long time, if you were to explain to someone who's never been in Midland before, what is your favorite thing about it? And I know we were talking before this interview started, a lot of people, they're born and raised here and then they kind of leave, but you decided to stick around and, here you are running for city council. What is something that you like about Midland?
What I like most about Midland is actually the nature. I like the parks. Because, a lot of people, there's not a lot within the city, but when you, there's actually forests here. There's, we have the nature preserve, we have the mountain bike park. There's actually a lot of natural places you can be in and, just relax, and one of the major issues with expansion and sprawl is that we're encroaching on natural habitats and things, and tearing down trees and deforesting. So just maintaining thinking about the environment, maintaining the nature that we have.
You're a big nature guy.
People most people, we're in a drier climate, right? We have, desert nature doesn't look as, it's different from, the dense woods or forests you have everywhere else. But, there is still, it's still an ecosystem, it's still nature, it has its own, it has its own kind of beauty.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Cheston, to sum it all up, are there any final words that you would like to address to the community, just to kind of push anything out there to get them to vote for you?
So, I want to say your vote matters, right? Even it matters more even in this election than previous than the generals, because for one we have 5 other candidates. So that means one who wins the plurality, not necessarily the majority, is going to win. So you need it's very important that that people are involved, right? Because in an election such as this, when not a lot of people vote, we have 5 other candidates. 1 or 2 people can swing the election.
Right.
Potentially.
That's true. It's
so
very true.
Yeah, your vote really matters. You gotta be registered 30 days before the election. Register before you can eligible to vote. So if you're not registered, register now, because you know.
Yes, okay. Cheston, I'm so glad you brought that up because we've had low voter turnout in Midland County in the past, so your vote always matters. So again, take a look. Early voting for the special election begins on April 22nd through April 26th, and then again on April 29th and the 30th, and then special election takes place on May 4th. So we have a couple interviews with the other candidates that Cheston will be going against. So you can find those on newswest9.com, also our News West 9 YouTube page, and also our streaming platform 9+. Don't forget that that is available on Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and Apple TV+. So Cheston, thank you so much for sharing everything on why you wanted to run for the at-large city council seat. And like he said, every vote matters for this special election, Midlanders, okay? So be sure you get out there and vote. But we'll see you guys next time.